Harry, there's something calming about the rhythm of a train. Vacation was great, but I'm glad we're heading home. I've missed coding and teaching, to be honest.
Same here. At first, I thought I'd enjoy doing nothing. But after a few days, I really started missing JavaScript.
That's what happens when you start falling in love with code. By the way, we still have a few hours to go. Want to squeeze in a mini lesson?
Absolutely. I've been meaning to ask you something. I see the words truthy and falsy everywhere, especially in conditionals. But no one really explains what they are. They just say, this is falsy, or that is truthy, and move on. It's confusing.
I get that. Those terms sound technical, but they're actually not that scary. Here's the idea. In JavaScript, every value has a built-in truthiness. That means when you check something inside in a statement, JavaScript decides whether that value feels like true or false.
Wait, so even if I don't write the word true or false, JavaScript still judges the value?
Exactly. You don't have to write true or false directly. You can write any value, a number, a string, a variable, and JavaScript will evaluate it and say, I'll treat this as true, or nope, this is false.
So that's what they mean by truthy and falsy.
Yes, truthy means JavaScript treats it like true. Falsy means JavaScript treats it like false. It's especially useful in conditions like if statements, loops, and so on.
Alright, so which values are falsy?
There are only a few, and you can memorize them easily. Here's a list. Number 0, the empty string. The special value is undefined and null, nan, and the Boolean value false.
That's it. Just those 6.
Yes, only those 6. If JavaScript sees any of them in a condition, it treats them as false. Everything else is considered truthy.
Let's go over those slowly. You said 0 is falsy?
Right. If you write if 0, nothing inside the if block will run, because 0 is treated as false.
And the empty string?
Also falsy. If you write a pair of quotation marks with nothing inside, no letters, no space, JavaScript says, that's empty, that's false.
Interesting. What if there's one space in the string?
Good catch. That's truthy, because it's not fully empty. It has a space, which counts as a character.
Wow. So JavaScript sees a string with just one space as true.
Yes, an empty string is falsy, but a string with even one space is truthy. It may not be logical to a human, but it is to the JavaScript engine.
Okay, let's move on. What's undefined again?
Undefined means this variable exists, but it has no value yet. If you declare a variable but don't assign anything to it, it becomes undefined.
Got it. And it's falsy.
Yes, exactly. If you check it in a condition, it is treated as false.
What about null?
Null is something you assign on purpose. It means, I'm setting this to nothing. It's intentional emptiness and also falsy.
Makes sense. What's nan?
It stands for not a number. It happens when you do weird math, like trying to divide a string by a number, or multiplying something non-numeric.
So if I write apple times 3, I get nan.
Exactly. And nan is also treated as falsy in JavaScript.
Okay, recap time. Falsy values are 0, empty string, undefined, null, nan, and false.
Perfectly summed up.
James, you explain things so well. Some things seem very complicated, but you make them so simple that everything becomes obvious. Let's continue.
You're right, Harry. Some things are much simpler than they seem at first glance. I like to keep things simple. Now, let's flip the coin and talk about truthy values. These are all the values that are not falsy, and there are many of them.
So, everything that isn't in the falsy list is automatically truthy?
Exactly. If a value is not one of the 6 falsy values, JavaScript treats it as truthy by default.
Can you give me some examples?
Of course. Let's start simple. The number 5, truthy. Any number that's not 0, truthy. Negative numbers, Truthy. Decimals like 3.14, truthy.
So all numbers except 0?
That's right. 0 is falsy, but every other number, positive or negative, is truthy.
Okay, got it. What about strings?
Any string that has at least one character is truthy. Even if that character is just a space, a dot, or a letter, it counts.
So a string with just one space is truthy.
Yes, it may look empty to us, but technically, it contains a character. JavaScript sees that and says, okay, this is something.
Interesting. What about empty arrays?
Great question. You might expect them to be falsy, because they're empty, right?
Exactly. That's what I thought.
But no, empty arrays are truthy. Even if there's nothing inside, JavaScript says, this is still a real object. It exists. So it's truthy.
Whoa, that's kind of unexpected.
Same with empty objects. An empty object with no properties is still truthy.
So, an empty array and an empty object are both truthy?
Yes, if you write if empty array, the code will run, because JavaScript considers it true.
That's so weird. I thought empty always meant false.
Not in JavaScript. Here, existing is enough to be considered truthy.
So let me test this. If I create an empty array and check it in an if statement, it still runs?
Exactly. Try something like this. Let list equals empty array. Then, if list, the code inside runs.
Because list exists, even though it's empty.
That's right. The array is real, even if it holds nothing.
And what about Boolean values? Like true and false?
Good point. The Boolean value true is obviously truthy, and false, of course, is falsy.
So that one behaves as expected.
Yes, Boolean true is always treated as true, and Boolean false is always false. No surprises there.
Okay, so quick review. Truthy values include any number except 0, any non-empty string, arrays, objects, and the Boolean value true.
You got it. If you remember the 6 falsy values, you automatically know everything else is truthy.
This is finally starting to make sense.
I'm glad you find it so easy. If you're not tired, we can have some tea and continue our mini lesson on the train.
In fact, there is a lot of information, and at first glance it seems complicated. But when you explain, James, everything seems not complicated at all, even simple. Of course, I am not tired. The topic is very exciting. So let's drink some tea and continue our conversation with pleasure.
Now that we have had a little refreshment, we can continue our impromptu lesson so that the topic remains fully analyzed and everything is as clear as possible.
Of course we continue, James. The topic is very fascinating. I didn't even notice how we drove most of the way.
Now that you know the difference between truthy and falsy, let's look at how this actually helps when writing code.
You mean like real-life situations?
Exactly. Let's say you want to check if a user has entered their name. You could write if username and then do something.
And if the username is an empty string?
Then nothing happens because empty string is falsy. But if there's even one letter, the condition runs.
So you don't need to write if username not equals empty string?
No need. If username already checks that, because a non-empty string is truthy.
That's clean. I've seen code like that before. Now I get it.
Another example. Let's say you want to check if a list exists before looping over it. You can write if list, then loop.
And if the list is undefined?
Then the loop doesn't run because undefined is falsy. So this pattern protects your code from crashing.
Very cool.
Truthy and falsy also help in short expressions, like this. Let name equals input or guest dot. If input is truthy, it's used. If it's falsy, guest is used instead.
Ah, I've seen that. Like setting default values.
Exactly. Falsy values, like you say. If this is missing, use that instead. It makes your code simpler and more readable.
Okay. But is there a way to double-check what JavaScript thinks is truthy or falsy?
Yes, use console log. Try this. Console log boolean a value. If it prints true, it's truthy. If false, it's falsy.
So I can write console log boolean of 0 and see false?
Perfect. It's a great trick for learning and debugging.
What's the biggest mistake beginners make with Truthy and Falsy?
Good question. The most common one, assuming that empty things are always false, like empty arrays or empty objects.
Yeah, I would have guessed they're Falsy.
But they're not. JavaScript treats them as real, and real means truthy.
I think I'll have to practice this.
You will. And the more you use it, the more natural it feels. It's one of those small things that makes your code cleaner.
Thanks, James. It was a great lesson on the train. I really didn't notice how time passed.
Anytime, Harry. The best way to master coding is to keep asking questions.